Hello everybody and welcome to another video. As you can see, I've got the bandana back on. It just didn't quite feel right doing it without it. I've been doing that since the very start, so might as well keep it going. Anyway, today we're going to be revisiting a band we checked out back towards the end of 2019, I believe it was, around about October. A band called Drift Into Black, a melodic death doom metal band. Around about that time, I did a review of their album Anthems from the Darkest Winter. I think that's what it was called. By the name of the album and by the name of the band, it sounded to me like it was going to be a black metal band, but like I said, it's a sort of melodic doom death metal band and following a lot of doom metal themes within the music. Anyway, a short time ago, they got into contact with me and asked me if I wouldn't mind checking out their newest track that they've released called The Burial Gown. Now, I believe this is a lyric video, but I do actually have some lyrics up here as well, which came from underneath a video on YouTube, so hopefully they should be accurate. Since I've covered the band before, not really much to say about that, so we'll jump into the track and see what we have. So this is The Burial Gown by Drift Into Black. Let's have a look. And there we go. That was The Burial Gown by Drift Into Black. Now, it's been a while since I last listened to Drift Into Black, but it sounded quite different. Vocally, it sounded quite different. On the last album I checked out, they had some of this sort of harsh, death-growled vocals, but for the most part of the album, it was clean vocals. But again, the clean vocals were different to the ones we heard in this track. There seemed to be possibly female guest vocals in there, or it was just a completely different style of clean vocals that was used. I couldn't actually discern. But also, the harsher vocals sound quite different. So whether they're shooting for a slightly different angle on this album, I don't know. But it was still quite interesting. Musically, I thought it sounded really, really good. It had really quite heavy parts, and towards the end, it took on a different beat, different tempo. The riffs slightly changed, and they sounded slightly discordant. They sounded slightly. It sounded slightly off, but I think that might have been intentional. It didn't sound off in like a really jarring sort of bad way. It sounded like maybe there was a sort of, something about the riff didn't quite sound right, and I think that may have been intentional. I don't know. As for the actual meaning of the track, I'm not entirely certain. There's a couple of little bits in it that sort of make me wonder, but I really couldn't say very much. The way it's written, it seems to be talking about a woman weaving a burial gown, like it showed in the video. That woman who looked shockingly like Lara Croft seemed to be sewing a red burial gown. However, the lyrics go, "A gown black as night, woven in patterns, with a heart cold as ice, she speaks through her threads. A needle guides her voice, there is nothing left. Only the truth remains, her tale needs to be told." So I have no idea what that means. Gown black as night, woven in patterns, with a heart cold as ice, she speaks through her threads. So I have no idea. Anyway. It says, "Scars run deep, her beauty unseen. Nights turn black, mornings turn blue, screaming out without a sound. Autumn's best work, the burial gown." Now, this bit sort of makes me wonder. It said, "Autumn's best work, the burial gown." Now, autumn comes before winter, obviously. All the leaves in the trees, fall to the ground, creating a blanket of sorts across the earth, kind of like a burial gown before the death of the planet, before it's reborn again in spring. Do you get what I'm going at here? That bit there. It's like the changing of the seasons. Autumn's burial gown because, it coats the earth in a blanket. In winter, everything dies, like plants die and whatnot, all the leaves die and everything like that, all the flowers wilt and wither and die. And, the death of the world. And then in spring, it is reborn anew to carry on. And once it gets around to autumn again, it prepares the world by wrapping it in a burial gown before it dies again. That's all I can get from it. And when it says, like, nights turn black, evenings get darker quicker in the winter, around autumn or fall if you're in America. Nights turn black, they get darker quicker, and mornings turn blue, the days seem to be sort of a bit darker and bleaker. I don't know. So that bit to me just suggests the cycling of the seasons. Anyway, carries on. "Laid to rest on that rainy day, she descends downwards, her last goodbye. No time for grieving, she's living in the grip of fear, tonight's decision, a grim plan because there's no way out. Scars run deep, her beauty unseen. Nights turn black, mornings turn blue. Screaming out without a sound, autumn's best work, the burial gown. Now you're at peace, the pain is gone. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Dark clouds above still remain. No time to waste, she's in fear. She fled that night and hid away, curled up to sleep upon her grave. There's no way out. And the phrase "there's no way out" gets repeated quite a few times before the track ends. So really, I'm not 100% on any meaning behind the song. If there is one at all, it could just be going for grim doom themes, of misery, despair, death, that sort of thing. It might just be that. There might not necessarily be any meaning behind it. But I quite enjoyed that song. Like I said, it felt quite different to what I remember their other tracks sounding like. And like I said, in the last album of theirs that I checked out, there was a lot of clean vocals, rather than like the harsher vocals like we heard in this track. In fact, clean vocals dominated a vast majority of the album, which I think was something I wasn't overly fond of, because the clean vocals that were displayed on that album were sort of, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. I've listened to a lot of music in the past couple of years, and I can't remember everything off the top of my head. But no, I liked that track, and I seem to recall I did actually like, that album as well. It was a decent album. I think I gave it something like 7 out of 10. I thought it was a decent album. But I did have a few criticisms, mainly the overuse of the clean vocals. But this track sounded good. Like I said, very well performed, harsh vocals. I've got something in my eye. There we go. So forgotten what I was saying. It was well performed. The harsh vocals were very well done. The clean vocals, like I said, sounded very different to me from what was on the last album. So yeah, interesting. I like it. Pretty good. But I can't think of anything else to say on that, so I'll leave that as it is. And if anybody would like to suggest a track for me to react to, then please do so. By all means, you can drop a comment in the comment section below, or message me on my Facebook or my Instagram, or you can even message me through my Patreon, where you could also help to support this channel, which would of course be a huge help to me, because every piece of content I create for this channel gets immediately demonetized the moment it gets uploaded. So I make absolutely nothing from anything that I put on this channel, which is a little bit frustrating. I mean, obviously I can understand, the artist getting credit for their contributions to my videos. I'm using their music, so it's only fair that they get some form of recompense for that. But I'm making absolutely nothing from any of this, which is kind of infuriating, considering how much effort and time I put into doing it. But there you go. There's an option in Patreon where you can get your suggestion jumped to the front of the queue, should you so desire it. I think there is a limit on that, to how often you can do that. It's limited to once a month. And that's just to be fair to other people who suggest other tracks through more regular means, such as Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram comments. And if you do suggest a track through those more regular means, do know it could take me a while to get around to your suggestion, since I do get suggested so many new tracks every single day that my list grows faster than I can record the videos. And, I do write down every suggestion I get. It just might take me a while to get around to your suggestion, unfortunately. But it should get done eventually. Also, MetalHead Reacts is a proud supporter of the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, a British-based charity whose overall goal is to put an end to hate crimes, and one of the main facets of that is hate crimes against people of the alternative culture. And that is something I believe in very, very strongly, something I'm very, very passionate about, because it's something I've had to deal with for most of my life, as have many of my friends and family. And it's something that gets very widely ignored. It sort of gets brushed under the carpet and treated as not an issue, because, people don't care. And that's something that really needs to change, because every day all around the world, people from the alternative culture are getting violently attacked simply because they listen to alternative music or wear alternative fashion. And, we're not talking about just names being shouted at them from across the street or, getting shoulder bumped as they walk down the road. No, we're talking about real violent crimes where people are getting brutally and violently attacked, sometimes hospitalized with, broken limbs and sometimes even more life-threatening injuries. And this has been going on for decades. This has been going on for longer than I've even been alive. And it's just ignored at every turn. The last time there was any widespread speak of this was about 14 years ago when Sophie Lancaster and her boyfriend Rob Maltby were brutally attacked and violently beaten by a group of 5 or 6 people who beat them, kicked them, punched them, knocked them to the ground and stamped on their heads so brutally and violently that they both ended up in comas. Now, Rob Maltby, he did thankfully survive. He was in a coma for a little bit over a week. I can't remember exactly how long, but he did thankfully survive. Sophie Lancaster, on the other hand, was in a coma for 13 days before she succumbed to her injuries and she died. This young woman was 20 years old and was beaten to death just because of the music that she listened to and the clothes that she wore. And when this happened, this was all over the news at the time, as well it should have been. It was all over the news for several weeks, months, however long it was. But as with all things, it eventually sort of faded away. But the thing is, in the 14 years since that's happened, we've never heard a single similar thing. We've heard no reports of any other attacks like that taking place. But I know for a fact that there have been several hundred, if not several thousand, similar attacks to that in the past 14 years. Just a couple of years ago, a young woman in Glasgow was running a charity gig at a venue, and at one point during the evening she had to go back to her home for whatever reason. Now, her home was a 5-minute walk away from that venue. And in the time between her leaving the venue and getting to her home, she was attacked twice by the same group of people and beaten. And again, it was a group of people. It's always a group of people because these people are cowards and they think they're being clever. But this young woman, she was beaten, kicked, punched, knocked to the ground and beaten more, twice. And thankfully, a passing taxi driver put an end to the attack, but he didn't stop to see if she was okay. He just carried on his merry way. She didn't get help until she got back to the venue where she was hosting the gig, where her friends were. This was not in the news. Why not? This took place in Scotland. I could walk to Scotland from where I live. I'm that close. And I didn't hear a damn thing about this in the news. I didn't hear a thing about this until a friend told me about it. Why wasn't this in the news? If that taxi driver hadn't passed when he had, who's to say that that young woman wouldn't have been in the same situation as Sophie Lancaster? If that taxi driver hadn't passed when he had, that woman could have easily have been beaten to death, just like Sophie Lancaster. Why wasn't this in the news? We shouldn't have to wait for someone to lose their life before this sort of thing gets spoken about. What happened to Sophie Lancaster must never be allowed to happen again. It should never have happened in the first place. But it most certainly must never be allowed to happen again. And this is what the Sophie Lancaster Foundation is all about. They want to bring more attention to the fact that this sort of thing is happening and raise more awareness of the fact that this is actually a very real problem, a very big problem. Because they don't want to see another family go through what they went through when they had to watch their daughter slowly die over the course of 2 weeks because of the small-minded actions of a group of people who couldn't handle the fact that not everybody likes the same stuff, not everybody dresses the same way. Everybody has the right to be an individual. Everybody has the right to be able to leave their house without fearing for their lives just because they like something different. If you'd like to find out more about the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, there is a link to their website in the description below. You can go over there, find out what they're working on at the moment, find out what their overall goal is, because they can explain it a lot better than I can. And if you can help them out in any small way, obviously you don't feel obligated to do so, but if you can help them out in any small way, whether it be something as simple as like a small donation through their website, or something as simple as one of these Sophie wristbands. I've got those ones as well. They've got a whole bunch of other really cool stuff as well. The smallest amount can make the biggest difference, and the sooner we get more people talking about this, the sooner we bring more attention to this, the sooner we can help to stamp out prejudice, hatred, and intolerance everywhere. But I'm going to leave that as it is for the time being. Thank you all very, very much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.